Welcome to the Legal Learning Podcast. I'm your host, Jolene, and with the Legal Learning Center, I help prospective law students save $300,000 on law school. If you'd like to ensure that you are remembering everything that goes into applying to law school, visit legallearningcenter.com for a free law school application checklist. Today, I'm joined by Alexandria Serra, a criminal defense attorney who has faced hardships both in law school and after. In sharing her hardships with you, I just want you to know that no matter what you're going through, you are not alone.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me on this podcast. I'm really excited to share my story. I'm Laura Alexandria Serra. I am a lawyer, serial entrepreneur, and founder of the Serra Law Empire here in El Paso, Texas. I do a little bit of law, I do a lot of entrepreneurship, and I have a couple side hustles. So what I learned being a lawyer is how to translate those skills into being a businesswoman.
That's awesome. I'm so excited to talk about all that you do because everything I've seen looks really awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm excited. So, and I'm also excited because the reason I brought you on was that you had more of a winding journey through law school. And I know so many of us, when we go through law school or are approaching law school, we feel like, we're a non-traditional student and we feel like we're the only one that feels imposter syndrome or just all of these things of, should I drop out? And you kind of cover it. So I want to talk to you about your law journey. Okay, what year did you first start law school?
So winding journey is the understatement of the century. But I started law school in the fall of '08.
Okay. And when did you first think you might want to be a lawyer?
Oh my gosh. Well, so here's the deal is I grew up in a place where, everybody had an opinion, right? Very strong, like opinionated family. And of course, I love to argue. I love theater. I love drama, right? And so you see lawyers on TV doing these trial shows and it's like that looks fun, right? And as I developed, I did debate and forensics in high school. I was a college All-American in speech. And so everybody was like, you got to be a lawyer, you got to be a lawyer, you got to be a lawyer. So I think it started when I was younger, but it was reinforced all through college. And what I really wanted to be was a vet. And then that translated into a doctor. But I was like, ooh, what would be easier, the LSAT or the MCAT? I took the LSAT and ended up in law school, right? Because I just kept hearing that stuff. And if I can convey that message to you of like the best thing that I ever did, and we'll get to this story, is drop out of law school because it gave me time to discover who I was before I went back.
I think that's really important because a lot of students go straight through. They don't take a break to look around and see what else is out there. They think, well, I'm just going to be a secretary in a cubicle or something like that. And so I'm going to go be a lawyer. And there's so many options out there. And knowing who you are, even if you go back to law school, yeah, it can streamline it. It can make it more meaningful and make you more productive. So, okay. So how long did you stay in law school?
So round one, I call it law school take one and law school take two. So law school take one, I graduated from Kansas State University. I'm from the Midwest and then immediately went to law school at George Washington in DC. And so you have two things going on, right? You first have a student like a lot of y'all are that are listening that is a type A, right? And we do really, really, really well. And we're not used to going into an environment that is highly competitive and everybody's a good student because they wouldn't be there, right? If they weren't a good student.
Right.
And so that was the first slap in the face for me because when you're used to performing at a very high level and then you're slapped down a bit, that for a young person, a lot of us aren't capable of dealing with that appropriately. So there was a lot of emotions and identity issues and things wrapped up in that I couldn't unpack. The second thing is I graduated with 50 other people in my high school, right? And then my college was pretty small, around 23,000 total. Going from that to DC. Okay, so then that was a huge slap for me. So I was at George Washington for 3 semesters. I went a full year, then got this really prestigious fellowship at a large firm in Minneapolis. And I went, and that was when the economy tanked. So as a summer associate, I was getting paid more than some of the first or second year associates because they all had to take pay cuts. So it was like this ridiculous culture. I didn't get a good job. I didn't get hired afterwards. Came back, did one more semester at GW and decided not for me.
Wow. So when did you first start to feel like this isn't for me? Or
Day one.
maybe it's not?
Day one.
Oh, wow.
Absolutely. Yeah, day one, 100%. I felt super out of place and I felt like, I just felt like it wasn't right. And I'm the type of person that'll power through stuff, right? And I used to be more so I wouldn't listen to my body. I wouldn't listen to my heart. I wouldn't try to reconcile the mind heart connection and be openly vulnerable. And so I was just like, the only way is through. Let's do it. I can do it, right? I'll show them who doubts me. So yeah, from day one, and it just was reinforced over and over and over again until I took some time off.
Wow. Okay. So was there something that specifically said, okay, this is it? This is what's making me not go back?
I was just done. Like there was no enjoyment out of it. It was really highly stressful. I was going through some family issues. And I remember I had gone on this trip to see a friend in San Francisco who was also a summer associate in Minneapolis when I was there. And I had made friends with him. And I was sitting on his porch in San Francisco. And I remember calling my parents and being like, y'all, I want to drop out of law school. Like, I'm done. I'm done. I'm not mature enough for this, right? And just the rage, just the like disappointment, just the everything that you grow up thinking like, if I make this one decision, that means I'm a failure for the rest of my life, right? That's the vibe that I was getting from my parents. And despite that, I was like, you know what? Like, this is not your life. I know you got me here. You helped me through college. You've been amazing parents, but this is not your life. And so after that is when I decided to stop. Yeah, to stop, to take some time off and figure myself out.
Yeah, that's really hard because, yeah, most of us are type A's. And regardless, if we got into law school, we're not quitters. We are overachievers, we are hard workers. And yeah, just to walk away doesn't feel aligned, I think, with our normal trend. But in some cases, staying also is not aligned with what we really want.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what did you do?
Lived out of a paper sack of food. So that was probably one of the most low moments in my life because I was struggling with like my identity and what I'm going to do. So I've always been like, I would make these, when I was a kid, I would make these elaborate things. Like I had a Lego city in my basement and I would, act out everything. And then I would be a teacher one day and teach all my stuffed animals math. And then another day I'm a vet. And then another day I'm a pop singer. So like I was always very creative and very entrepreneurial. Like I would, be like, Mom, want to hear my new song? It's $1 admission fee. Like, it's very. So I got out and I started my own business, which was an epic failure at that time. But it's one of those things that if you try something and then you fail once, the hardest step is to try it again. But so much from what you experienced. So I think that helped me transition into all of the entrepreneurship that I do now. But started a business. I was a personal trainer and health coach. And my undergrad degree is kinesiology, totally into science, totally thought I was going to be a doctor. And did that for about a little under a year and then moved from DC to Dallas And then at that point, it was like, oh, I've got to get a real job. Do I go back to law school? What do I do?
Yeah, that's really hard. I don't know how many listeners have ever tried to start their own business, but it is so hard. The advertising and the sales, right? Your sales pitch and getting the clients in that door and actually keeping them with you and actually making them happy and dealing with them as well. It's just, I don't know. There's just so many pieces. And yeah, do you have a studio? Are you doing it in the park? What are you doing? There's so many different things. And of course, we always have our own perceptions of like, oh, I must have a website. Okay, well, you don't actually need one. Or, I must have a studio. Well, you don't actually need one. And sometimes we drive ourselves into the ground with these businesses as well. So
Yep.
yeah, that's a whole nother stressor. So
For sure, but it fits my lifestyle. So a lot of people, if you're thinking of ever going out into having your own firm or a solo practice or whatever it may be, they don't teach you business in law school. So I had to figure that out for myself. My dream would be to teach an entrepreneurship law class at a law school because I've done it. I've been there. I've built a practice. I've survived COVID. I've tripled my revenue, right? But that's all self-taught stuff. Okay. So that's it. The business world is crazy, but they don't teach that stuff in law school. But for my personality that likes something a little different every day, it fits. It absolutely fits. So that's pretty fun. So once I got to Dallas, then I'm like, what am I going to do with my life? Right. I suck at being a health coach. I have half a law degree. Like what can I do with my life? So what we often do is we take personality tests and it kept coming back. You should be a lawyer. You should be a lawyer. You should be a lawyer. Of course, right? And the external validation, we all like, I look back.
Crazy.
Yeah. But I got a full-time job as a legal secretary and went to night school, transferred my credits from GW to SMU law. And so I would get up in the morning super early, work out, drive to work a full day as a legal secretary, and then go to night school. And it was awesome because it taught me discipline. So if y'all are moms or thinking about a second career or something like that, night school, I would highly recommend because it is a population that is not as intense as your day students. It's not their life. It's not their world. Their everything doesn't, matter. Just this class, right? It's more collegial. It's cooler classes, smaller classes. So if you're on the fence about law school and you're worried about the intensity, night school is awesome. So that's kind of how I got back into it.
That's great. So you were able to work full time, go to school part time. How many of your credits transferred? Was it a year and a half or just a year?
Just a year.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, that kind of makes sense. It's not cool, but it makes sense.
It makes sense. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So you had to start your second year over. Now, how did you feel this time?
I felt like I fit in. And part of that may have been geography. Like I've been a Texan for 10 years now. So it fits a little better with that Midwest vibe for me. But I felt better and it wasn't my everything. And I think just in general with people, whether it's a relationship, a partner, a job, whatever, if we just put like our whole identity into something, that's problematic. And so because I had a full-time job and other stuff, I couldn't just be a law student, right? And that taught me about labels. And there's like, you go around and you say like, I am a law student, I am a lawyer. And my biggest advice is, or, I'm an engineer, I'm a whatever. My biggest advice is to reframe that when you're talking to yourself in the mirror and be like, okay, I'm not just a lawyer. I am a whatever, right? Exceptional mom. I'm a fitness enthusiast. I am, whatever that may be, because we're told like to specialize, and we're told to do this one track and stay in your lane and not cause problems and be an expert. And my advice is don't necessarily do that. It's more fun the other way. So
I like what you
do that.
said. For sure, we need that other identity and we forget it because I know a lot of lawyers who are leaving law, who have left during COVID and that kind of thing. And it's hard. It's a really hard thing. Even if you're happy to leave, you're like, oh, I was so happy to quit my job. I'm happy to, now be an entrepreneur or now, just be a stay-at-home mom and not have to worry about juggling everything or whatever it is. But it's such a big part of who we are. And of course, if we're saying in our heads as well that I am a lawyer, there's never that other conversation of what else you are. For me, like I'm a soccer player, and I do archery and all these things. And but I don't say that to myself, like as not, especially not as much as I say I'm a lawyer. So and yeah, I took a few months gap from practicing and it was like I was just a ship out at sea, just like a little bit lost, even though I was okay with it. It still was just, am I a lawyer? Am I not a lawyer? Because I'm not practicing this month. So it was a very weird feeling. So I think it would make it smoother for people who either want to leave someday or need to leave for a little while or are looking into transitions down the road, that as well as just for everybody else, but especially in those cases, that you have that other identity firmly in your mind.
100%. And the things that you tell yourself in private are damaging and narrowing like that. But then think about it, like you put yourself in a box, right? And every time you say that, well, what do you do? Or what do you, oh, I'm a, blah, 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 right? Then that reinforces that. And so the walls of your box become so thick that you feel like you can never lift that lid or break out of it because you're going to be lost. You don't know what other people are going to think you are because you're so attached to that identity. And really, like, growth, even as a lawyer, requires you to step out of that and take something from psychology, take something from, whatever you're interested in, and utilize that to either better connect with your clients, or if you're a trial attorney like I am, to connect with jurors, right? To negotiate, to set your business practice up to be sustainable, to engage with your employees, to not bring home your shitty lawyer day to your partner, how to interact with your kids without cross-examining them. Like all of that stuff comes from things outside the law. And so I'm a huge proponent of mini vacations, mini retirements, taking time off, not practicing for a little while, having other projects. That might not work for everyone, but the deal is really nobody cares that much. Like, honestly, when you took your time off, you probably felt judged and lost. But did you get a lot of grief from like family and stuff?
I think I bypassed that a little bit because of COVID.
Gotcha.
Because I had kids at home, it was a little chaotic. So it was like, yeah, cool, go for it, but it was still that, but what are you going to do?
Right. Right.
What are you doing? What is that good enough? Is that enough? And it's like, oh my gosh, leave me alone.
Were they
I'm an
saying
adult.
that to you?
Huh?
Were they saying that to you, or was that like
yeah.
wow.
So it's just really, but it's true, like you said, it goes all the way through, right? It goes before we go to law school. There's that influence. Aren't you going to go to higher education? Well, you mentioned it the one time, so you got to go now, and oh wait, if you take gap years, you might lose your motivation. It's just that constant little, and I'm not going to say like overwhelming pressure, but like you said, lots of hints, lots of little pushes that make you kind of feel like, okay, I guess I got to do this thing. And then you got to stay with this thing, right? And it makes it very difficult. And yeah, luckily, like I said, because of COVID, I had some separation. Even though they were saying these things, it's not like they were in my face every day because we were isolating and stuff like that. So it helped. But yeah, it's I even had just a little like networking kind of over Zoom with somebody, and they're like, oh, but you're not practicing, right? And actually I had started practicing again. I go, yes, I am. But it was like that yes, I am. And it was like, why am I like that? Like, who cares? Like, the answer could have been yes or no, and I shouldn't even really care. But there is something in there that we do
You
to
do.
ourselves. Yeah,
Mhm.
it's
And taking, in your experience, like taking it, for me, it was a refresher, right? It was just so refreshing and helped me figure out a little more of who I was. Again, I was still in my 20s. I'm 36 now. I've discovered more, certainly not everything, but more. But going so hard, so long, kind of how I see a lot of law students do, like you said, super intense high school, super intense college, get into law school, go to a big firm or what. It's just, you're stepping on the gas the whole time and you're gonna burn out. Burnout is real. Addiction issues are real. Divorce is real. Bad relationships with your kid is real. That those are the consequences of not taking your foot off the gas.
yeah.
100%.
Yeah, we absolutely need it. And I will say, because I don't usually mention this, but I spent 12 years in corporate and it was great, but it was very fast paced. And and I was high trials and all that kind of stuff. But I took a few breaks. I took a few leaves of absence because there were times where it was like, there's just too much. I need a moment. And so I would take like 3 months, and I did that 2 or 3 times over the years. I forget now, but but it was like, I need a moment. And
Amazing.
people need to do that more because they don't do it. They don't take care of themselves. So yeah, okay. So tell me now, you finished law school the last 2 years, right? Oh,
Yes.
okay. So what year did you graduate?
I graduated in December of 2013
Okay.
and then took the February bar and got barred in May of 2014.
All right. So you've been practicing, what is that, like 7 years?
7.5
Yeah.
ish. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Gotta add the half.
Hour
I'm
and a
like,
half, right? See, again, why do we do that?
I know,
Like,
right? I know. I'm
it's
like,
everything. Yes,
I
7.
love it. No, it's just, it's in there. It's how we are. We can try and temper it down as much as possible, but yeah. Okay. So I know you still had a bit of a winding past. So what happened to you after graduation? What'd you do?
So after graduation, then I took well, I had taken the patent bar before. So the law firm I was working at was a patent law firm. And so I went from secretary to like paralegal type to technical writer to full-fledged like patent agent, patent attorney, and then decided, well, holy moly, this is so boring. I can't do it anymore. So super lucrative, really fun. And I think that's an analysis everybody has to do because I encourage you to try all kinds of stuff, right? You may think you want corporate or IP or family or whatever, right? And you try it and you're like, ooh, I don't like this.
Yeah.
So what you don't like is just as important as finding out what you do like. So I took a moment, pivoted, and decided, you know what? I want to be in a courtroom. Remember, as a kid, I was so like dramatic and creative. And so court, that's where I want to be. So I then applied to be a prosecutor in Collin County, which is a suburb of Dallas, and a public defender in El Paso, Texas. I got both jobs. And so I was trying to pick. And so I picked El Paso. I zoomed off from Dallas to El Paso and started a life here. And I've been here for almost 7 years.
Wow. Okay. So are you, sorry, that's a prosecutor one, right? That's in El
No,
Paso.
no, public defender.
Public defender. Okay. Sorry. So the public defender, are you still a public defender?
I am not. I did 2 years as a public defender, got a bunch of trial experience, and then said, you know what, we're going to try to do this on my own. Came out, worked kind of side by side with a wonderful mentor who did criminal defense work, and he is now a judge. So I inherited his practice along with my practice that I built. And so I do criminal defense work, I do record clearing, tickets, things like that. And then, I have some time for some side hustles. So that's primarily what I do. I have a small practice. My only other attorney is my partner, and then we have 12 employees.
Wow.
Mhm.
All right. And I know you said you've been doing really well through COVID. You guys have survived and thrived. So
Mhm.
that's great. Any tips on something like that if people are interested in starting their own practice?
Oh, absolutely. I I could teach a course on this stuff because I have failed so many times and learned a lot from it. But I think the biggest thing is that to empower people that they can do it. Like it's not as hard as you think. I leverage a lot of social media. I get a quarter of my clients from, and I do a lot of analytics, so I know, but I get a quarter of my clients from social media, a quarter of them from word of mouth referrals, and 20% of them for repeats. I have a few frequent flyers. But yeah, to do it. And you brought up a great point earlier is you don't need all this formal stuff, right? You don't need your own office. You can rent a co-work space or work out of, somewhere else. You don't need all this staff from the beginning. You don't need a fancy website. You don't need all the bells and whistles. Get your feet wet, find some mentors that are willing to help you on the legal side, and please, please, please take some business courses, whether that's online, community college, whatever. That is the biggest thing that I see where lawyers that are out in private practice struggle is they are such good technicians, but they're terrible managers and they're terrible entrepreneurs. And so you've got to balance that out or find someone else that can do that for you.
That's really good advice. And it's really sad that law school doesn't cover it, knowing that a lot of people do go into their own firm or go into their own small firm, like they could use, again, some marketing skills and things like that, some rainmaking skills, but they don't teach us those things in law school. Why aren't you teaching us rainmaking? I mean, that's kind of part of the practice. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And that's fun too. To me, I think that's fun. I think the personal aspect of what we do as lawyers is fun. So
Yeah.
that's, yeah. And the creativity, you think you're just doing like, this is the law and it's very da 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 da, right? Or this is the contract that I'm looking at. And there are so many opportunities for you to be creative within whatever sector you're in. And a cool way to do that is be a solo practitioner. But small firms, like you said, need that stuff. Large firms need that stuff.
Yeah.
New ideas, fresh ways to do it. And my biggest pet peeve with the legal industry in general is it's just so old school. Like I get so much shade in my community. Like old school attorneys are like, why are you giving information away for free? And this and that, and like all that stuff. And it's just my talents. What you pay me money for is not information. What you pay me money for is to show up and fight.
Yeah.
That's what you pay me money for, not for something that you can look up on Google.
Yeah. It's funny because I tell the pre-law students that as well, as there's a lot of free information on like Instagram, for example. But that's not, it's like playing checkers. When we're talking about $300,000 in debt, you need to be playing chess. So that's what, yeah, that's what a coach like me does with you is we are not playing checkers anymore. Instagram is your checkers. All right, let's play some chess when we're looking at $300,000 out there. So yeah, and it's the same thing. If you're running your own firm, you need a coach. You need, like you said, some education with respect to the business, because now, yeah, you're playing chess. This is a big deal. If you're going to run a firm and have clients, you need to know how to do all the things. And there's a lot of things that, yeah, in fact, most of the things we are not taught in law school. So I think all we're taught to do is look like a lawyer, present like a lawyer. So I know you said you also had a few other hiccups along your journey, along your legal journey as an attorney. Can you share some of those with us too?
Sure. So I am a recovering alcoholic. And a lot of that is attributed to the stress and just law in general. I mean, that's what we do, right? It is perpetuated in law firm social networks. It's just kind of like the lawyers, we go to trial, we do well, we drink. We go to trial, we do poorly, we drink. We go to these, like partner associate events, we drink. Social lubricant, that kind of thing. So I took that to the extreme and it finally caught up with me, and I didn't get arrested. I didn't get in trouble, none of that. But there was a rock bottom realization that I needed to get my shit together. And And so I have been in recovery. I've been sober 8 months. It's been the best 8 months of my life. Uh,
Yay.
and my capacity to serve is much, much better. My clients, myself, my staff, everybody. But it was a very, very dark time. And I think that was probably the most embarrassing thing, is having to make a phone call to my family and tell them like, hey, I'm in recovery. Like this is a thing. Like, you can't drink, I can't go anywhere where I can drink. I can't, be around people. I can't be around most of the friends that I had. I can't be around most of the places that I used to go. And luckily they were very, very supportive. I come from a family of alcoholics. So my mom's not a drinker, but she, her dad was an alcoholic, her brother was an alcoholic. So I had the genetic component, but it was very hard because that's what we're conditioned to do, right? We're having these business meetings, we're wooing
Yep.
clients, we're doing that kind of stuff, and there's always booze involved. So
Always. It's lunch, it's dinner, it's happy hour, it's all over the place. And I mean, as a law clerk in law school, I was at a family firm, and I remember our Christmas party was just really like, in the conference room, they had it catered or whatever, but it was also alcohol, which, okay, yay, I'm in law school, let's do it. Right. But then they sat around sharing DUI stories. And I was like, this isn't cool. Like, I don't want to be on the street with you people. Like, and they were laughing, and it was just like, I don't like this, and it's just, but it's very much a part of the culture that there's just alcohol everywhere. A lot of the Christmas parties are open bar. I mean, it's just, the dinners are paid for and there's alcohol included.
yeah.
So it's almost like, even if I wasn't going to have a drink, well, why not? It's free. So why have a soda? So yeah, it's just around, I think, so much easier and a lot more as a lawyer, and almost, I mean, it's not expected, but it's almost like, are you not going to have a drink? Oh, okay. Like, I mean, it's not a big deal,
I
but
think it's expected because people are, it's natural to be like, okay, right. Well, I'm not as bad as that guy. Right. So
yes.
enablers abound for sure. Like, we don't want to feel bad about our own drinking or whatever bad habit. Right. So we bring others into that. And I was guilty of that too. And I feel so bad. And I've had to make a lot of amends about that because I would consistently like talk people into troublesome things
Yes.
to kind of hide how much of a mess I was. And
Yeah.
that's about as raw as you can get, because those are some bad mistakes. But I found where I needed to be, and I'm there.
Yeah. No, I'm so excited by your story, because really, I think everything we go through in life, we just feel like I'm the only one. I'm the only one this way. I'm the only one that way. And there's so many people around that can give us the support we need, that can show with us that we're not the only ones. I mean, obviously, no two stories are exactly the same, but there are people out there who have been through the same kind of problems that you're having, whether it's, I'm not fitting into this law school, or it's just not jiving with what I want to do with my life, or okay, well, now I changed my mind again and I think it is going to work out for my life. And then yes, the hardships of law in general, whether it's deteriorating our internal health, right? We're not eating right, we're not exercising, or we actually are putting, additional chemicals in there, like smoking and drinking and all the different things that we can put in there. I mean, we do it all. We do it, and to varying degrees. And it's always good to hear, you can still come out and be okay. That, yeah, you've got this great practice, and it sounds like it really meshes with your internal being, that it's all aligned, and that you've got these side jobs. So, what are the basic topics of your side hustles?
Okay, well, I am not a human mom, but I am a dog mom, and I treat my dogs like they were kids. So I have a cage-free doggy daycare and a dog bakery.
Oh,
So yes, those are my side hustles. I started them out of my house, and they have kind of grown, and we're looking at big commercial spaces. After this, I'm gonna draw up an offer on a commercial house, to to expand into. So that's going to be fun. But those are my little creative endeavors. And what you can do when you're a solo practitioner or just lawyer in general, right? You have so many skills and so much knowledge. And so what I do at the end of every year, I look at all the things that I spend money on. And I'm like, how do I monetize this? Right. So, for example, my house, right? Well, that's a huge expense. Okay, I'll turn my detached garage into an Airbnb and offset my mortgage, right? Or shoot, I spend a lot of money on daycare for my dogs because I'm a bougie dog mom. So, well, why don't I start my own little business and then be able to expense it? So that's kind of how I do those things. And there's just so much opportunity to do so much fun, cool stuff when you're an entrepreneur. And I will say, even though like I had this rocky kind of crazy law school story, the skills I learned in law school are the foundation of my ability to do everything that I do now.
Yeah.
And to me, you know, the trial advocacy, the mock trial, moot court stuff, the ADR competitions, all the millions of speeches I gave in college, those are the things that are my foundation. And so find my biggest piece of probably closing advice is when you're looking at law school, I'm going to tell you this right now. The only time the law school matters is for that first job, right? And what's so much more important is finding a place that meshes with your personality. So if I had gone maybe to University of Kansas or Nebraska or Texas originally, I may not have had this winding story. But I went to a place based solely on prestige and what other people thought, and I didn't fit in and I repelled. So go find a place that fits with your personality, that fits with your interests, that provides a learning environment that's for you. Because that is going to keep you in it. It's going to teach you about the things that you like and you don't like, and present opportunities for you to discover your identity as a future lawyer. That's how you should select law schools. But that's my unsolicited advice.
Well, I love that. I often talk about how rank is not everything and they need to look around a little more. So I love that.
Yeah, go visit, go audit, go do, you know, but I was just like a naive, you know, coming straight out of college kid and didn't do that.
Alexandria, I really appreciate your advice. You are just a wealth of information. And if students want to follow up with you, if they have questions on something specific, or if they want to find out more about your like doggy daycare and all that stuff, are there places they can find you?
Sure, absolutely. So my foundational social media is Instagram. So I do lawyer talks and all kinds of things on Instagram. It's my name, Alexandria Sarah. So you'll find me that way. And then from that, you can link to all my other things. I'm happy to, if anybody is interested in speaking to me or doing like a group session or whatever of free advice where they can ask questions, I'm always open to that. Because learning from your experience is great, but if you can learn from other people's experience, that's going to set you far ahead of everybody else.
For sure. Thanks again.
All right. Thank you.
Before we get into my top takeaways, a quick word from our sponsor, Juno. If you need to take out student loans, check in with Juno first. Juno can often offer law students 1% to 2% lower interest rates than the federal government, and with no origination fees and oftentimes cash back as well. Visit advisor.legallearningcenter.com/Juno for more information. My top takeaways from this chat with Alexandria. Number 1, listen to your body and heart. Don't just power through. Number 2, know your environment. What works for you? What works with your body systems? Night school, a big town, a small town? Number 3, retain your outside identity. Don't just become a lawyer. Don't just become a law student. Maintain those outside friendships. Number 4, find mentors. And if you're interested in entrepreneurship, then take business courses. And number 5, law school only really matters for that first job. So go ahead and take that first job, even if it's not your dream job necessarily, and then go find what works for you. All right, all the tips, links, and so forth will be in the show notes. A full transcript will be available at legallearningcenter.com/Alexandria. And if you enjoyed the show, if you learned something today, please leave a review. That just helps the show help more people. Thank you.